South Africa and Nigeria both face significant crime challenges, but their issues differ in nature and scope. South Africa has a much higher murder rate than Nigeria, primarily driven by gang violence and socioeconomic disparities. Organized crime in South Africa tends to be more localized, with syndicates controlling activities such as drug trafficking, human trafficking, and armed robberies. In contrast, Nigeria's organized crime often extends internationally, with a focus on drug trafficking and online fraud schemes. South Africa also has one of the highest rape statistics globally, a troubling issue rooted in cultural and socioeconomic factors. While Nigeria grapples with serious crime, it is more notorious for international fraud, and less so for violent crimes like murder and rape when compared to South Africa. In conclusion, South Africa is more infamous for violent crimes such as murder and rape, alongside localized gang activity. While Nigeria is better known for international organized crime and fraud schemes, both nations face systemic issues, including poverty, corruption, and inadequate law enforcement, which contribute to their high crime rates.
Hey, woohoo! This is Janetta. Whoa, boy, the other day I said something on a video, and they took it and ran with it. I said that Nigeria and South Africa were related, but I also said that Nigeria and South Africa are giants. I'm going to quickly give you an explanation of exactly what I meant by giants and what I meant by related. Giants it's just exactly this. If South Africa ever shakes off the shackles of apartheid and really be established as a black country with the power of the black people, we only have 1 billionaire based on the statistics I read in South Africa. But in Nigeria, there's about 5 or 6 billionaires in Nigeria. So if we put those two together, and when I say South Africa only has 1, I'm talking about black billionaires. I'm not talking about those other people from Europe. I'm talking about the black man. South Africa is 90% black, and we're so busy trying to integrate them into our society until we just have, they're all powerful. But let me show you how we're related. If South Africa arises and finds her place, and if Nigeria rises and finds his place, I make Nigeria and South Africa king and queen. They are the rulers, they are the basics of Africa altogether. They are the basis for us. Whether you like it or not, South Africa, you have a great importance. Whether you like it or not, Nigeria, you have a great importance and a responsibility. But I'm gonna let you look at this first video about what we do to each other. This young lady, she'd been told about Nigeria, but had never gone. But based on what she was told about Nigeria, when she went to Nigeria, she found out that Nigerians were nothing like she had heard.
My trip, so while I was planning my trip, I told so many of my friends that I was going to Nigeria, and a lot of them discouraged me so much. They're like, it's dangerous, you might get kidnapped, like stories upon stories upon stories.
I am amazed at the warmth that I have received ever since I got to this country.
So I've been in Lagos for just over a week now, and this is the house I'm staying at. This is the first thing you see as soon as you step in the door, and when I tell you I have never seen anything like it, it's basically a palace. It's a palace.
I'm in Nigeria. She said she had a great time in Nigeria, and she was hopeful that she wished that the Nigerians would be treated as nicely in South Africa as she was treated in Nigeria. The only reason why most South Africans talk about Nigeria as they do, because they have not been to Nigeria, and they probably don't feel any reason to go because, see, the white man's not there, okay? It's a lot of security that we have and what whiteness does, and I can understand that. It's because of our history. But I wanted to let you see why we're related. Doesn't make any difference where we are. We're all suffering and we should not. We are actually the richest and the smartest people on the planet of this earth. But we have been sold a bill of goods for some reason. I don't know why. So listen to this story. I want you to listen to this story about Haiti.
Haiti is a nation on the verge of total collapse right now, and there are several reasons as to why that's true. If you go back to January 2010, there was a ginormous earthquake from which Haiti never recovered.
I was cooking and everything started to shake violently and the walls came crashing down. I was terrified. Now I always feel as if the ground is moving. It feels like a cemetery now.
It killed so many thousands of people, devastated homes, businesses, infrastructure, and it never got back up on its feet. Then when you move to 2021, they had the assassination of their prime minister, Jovenel Moise.
We have breaking news from Haiti, where the country's president is dead this morning, assassinated in what's being described as a middle-of-the-night attack. Jovenel Moise had been in office for 4 years and had been the target of months of protests.
And that led to the gangs coming in and taking over, which is the violence we see now. But even before any of this, there's this colonial legacy that has impacted and shaped Haiti's entire existence, where the Western nations like the United States and France have had heavy impact and influence over what goes on here. Haiti's a nation that was a colony of enslaved people that freed itself. And as one person told me, because it did that, it has been paying the price and suffering ever since. Whether it is the US backing propped up dictators or France making Haiti pay for generations and generations for the fact that it freed itself and then spending more than $1 billion to do so over those many generations, leaving it as the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere. Haiti isn't here by accident. What's going on in Haiti isn't here by accident. It is an intersection of generations and decades long interference, intervention, natural disasters, and now gangs that leave the Haitians who live there in grave danger.
Now that you've listened to what's going on in Haiti, let's see what's happening in Zimbabwe. For some reason, people in Zimbabwe are storming the borders of South Africa, and they've probably been doing that for years. But it seems like it's on an uprise. Why? Because of poverty and oppression. Now, I want you to look at this video about the Zimbabweans coming into South Africa.
Border that's barely there. This is South Africa's northern boundary, a meager wire fence, its first defense of sovereignty as its citizens rage against illegal immigration.
So this is the border fence, and this is no man's land, dividing South Africa from Zimbabwe, and people are clearly moving between the two very easily.
Zimbabwe is a beautiful country, I've heard. I've heard so many wonderful things about Zimbabwe, but they have been destroyed, mistreated, and not by the African, but by embargoes and sanctions and kept in poverty by the powers that be that have control that we allowed to get off the plane without any problem. But we have a problem with each other.
So when the modern South African state was made in 1994, Mandela was felt strongly about having open borders, about welcoming Africans from across the continent. What do you think about that?
I think that is the highest level of sellout. You can't, when South Africans were in exile, they were in camps, and they were restricted to go to other part of those countries. So why do you allow foreigners to go all over in South Africa and run business and make girlfriends? And I mean, South Africans, they can't even have their own girlfriends because the foreigners have taken over the girlfriend space.
From the girlfriend space to the employment space, pressure is on the authorities to arrest and deport undocumented people, even on a Thursday morning on their way to work.
Now, I want you to listen to this next one. This is another one that shows you how we do and why we do it. We have been hurt. The next one is South Africa. What is happening right now in South Africa?
Enoch Mashele has 5 brothers, his parents and 3 children to support. He's the only one in his family with a job. He works 12 hours a day, 7 days a week as a security guard in a rich Johannesburg neighborhood. Enoch lives in the township of Alexandra, one of the poorest areas of this city.
Life is very rough. There are more than 40 of us sharing one toilet and a tap. The $300 I earn a month is not enough to support me and my family.
That works out to be more than $1.25 a day, which puts Enoch above the extreme poverty line, according to the World Bank. But with all his dependents and the rising cost of living, Enoch can't even afford to feed himself properly. He can't afford public transport either, and every day he has to walk 3 hours to and from work. A World Bank report in 2014 says around half this country's urban population live in townships or so-called informal settlements like this one. The report goes on to say that it's places like this that are home to around 60% of this country's unemployed. Some of the worst violence against foreign migrants, who many locals accuse of taking their jobs, happens in neighbourhoods like these. The government says it will tackle what it describes as the root causes of the problem, including poverty, unemployment and immigration. But analysts say the government has failed so far.
There are people in South Africa, if they had a plane, bus, or train ticket to get out of South Africa to try to find better opportunities someplace else, they would do it as well. It seems that poverty is what we're running from. It seems that opportunity is what we're running to. It's not that the Nigerians just have to come to South Africa, but they see opportunities in South Africa that they don't see in Nigeria. And some South Africans have seen opportunities in other countries that they didn't see in South Africa. There's South Africans in the United States. There's South Africans in Britain. There's South Africans all over. There's some South Africans here in Tanzania. And there are probably some South Africans in Nigeria. So there's some South Africans that have gone all over the world for better opportunities. And there's nothing wrong with that. But to think that we're not related, that's what these videos are about, to show you that as a people, as Black people, we're related. There's a connection between us that is stronger than any bond you could ever think about, any ancestral bond. And it is our color. It is African. You can be a Black Indian. You don't have the problems that we have as a Black African or even as an African, period. As you've seen South Africa. Nigeria right now is suffering the consequences of, the economy in Nigeria is horrible. Things are costing 4 times as much as they did before. The inflation is going crazy. The money based on the dollar has been devaluated. It is crazy. And so, of course, poverty, more poverty. They had poverty in Nigeria before. But right now, today, I want you to look at this about the poverty in Nigeria.
For 7 months, Muhammad Aliyu says he walked these narrow, dusty streets begging for food. He and hundreds of others escaped attackers who laid siege to dozens of villages in Nigeria's northwest, effectively stopping farming and economic activities.
We were a bit comfortable living off our farms. The series of attacks and the attackers took away everything. As you can see, the conditions here are not so much different.
Nigeria's north is one of the country's poorest regions, despite producing its share of fish, livestock, and grains. Years of poor agricultural practices and the effects of climate change are hurting people's livelihoods here.
An estimated 48% of Nigeria's 180 million people live in extreme poverty. The highest rates are in areas with low levels of skills and education. Many here fear that lack of investment in the last 30 years means that millions of people will continue to suffer.
Nigeria has one of the fastest growing populations in the world, and also the largest concentration of the extremely poor. And development partners say successive governments continue to adopt the wrong approach in tackling poverty.
So it is these strategic directions that we haven't seen. I think there is this unacceptable belief on the power of market to transform the lives of the people. But this is not corresponding with the social reality either in the country or in any part of the world.
Despite Nigeria's vast oil wealth, half its population lives on less than $2 a day. And with conflicts forcing more and more poor people from their homes and lands, many doubt if the government will be in a position to improve the lives of millions across the country.
What I'm trying to explain to you is this, that we as Black people have had more difficulty throughout the world, not only Africa. If I were to show you pictures of how we're suffering in the United States, most of you wouldn't believe it. And then there's excuses being given. The reason why the Black man's suffering in the United States because they're lazy and they don't take opportunity. This is what the tactics they use to try to keep us separated. We have been separated as a people. We have been made to believe that one group is better than the other group. And they'll treat us differently, but it ends up the same way. We all have one thing in common, that we are Black Africans. We are. And they make excuses and give opportunities, but we should be the ones giving opportunities. We are the richest people in the world, but they're yet the poorest. Why? Because we are so divided, we don't like each other. We can't unify and get together on what our problem is. We have the same problem. It's not different. If we could just work on that problem, we could change the world. So I'm asking you to look at this and think about it. Think about how we can get together. Think about how we can arise over ethnicity, tribes, ancestry, language barriers. How can we rise above those things and take our position as leaders of the world, as world leaders? Can we take an example from Brother Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso? That young man is showing an example through the AES, showing an example along with Mali and Niger. What will happen if we get together and put down our differences? Okay, that's all I want to say to you. Hey, this is Janetta. If you like it, make sure you say you like it, comment, and please share it. And most of all, hey, will you become my partner, or will you subscribe? I love it if you do. Hey, I'll be talking to you again real soon. Ooh, yeah. Hey, this is Janetta, and you're watching Africa Speak.